So this is a story about the strange relationship between wanting to hunt and kill an animal and wanting to save it.
If it weren't for us, if it weren't for the hunters,
the animals would not be alive.
Without us hunting them, they would go extinct.
I got that line over and over again.
There would be no animals other to hunt.
Basically what they mean by this is they are the ones that are paying to keep these animals around. They are the ones who are funding conservation.
How does the conservation angle work exactly?
So basically how this works is each state has an agency that's responsible for managing its wildlife.
Yes!
And so if you're a hunter,
50,000.
you basically have to buy a tag from that state agency in order to shoot just about any animal. For example, in Arizona is this grid of hunting areas, and you apply to a lottery for Zone B. I would really like to be able to shoot a moose. You put your $20 in. This is typical. And
60,000.
if your name comes up, you get your tag for $20. But it's possible that you're not going to get one, and sometimes you have to wait 10 or 20 years, especially for these big game animals.
67 and a half.
So what these agencies do,
$70,000.
they set aside a certain number of these tags every year, which are called conservation tags. And what these conservation tags are is like,
77 and a half.
if you just give a bunch of money right now,
I did not see this coming.
you have free range to do what you want. Hop the line, shoot the animal you want, no waiting.
$80,000. He did it. He freaking did it.
And then all that money goes back to those state agencies for land management, habitat restoration. Like, we're talking millions of dollars that get raised this way. The Dallas Safari Club.
They were auctioning off an opportunity to hunt a black rhino in Namibia.
The Namibian Ministry of Environment and Tourism had given them one tag to hunt one black rhino, and they were going to auction it off. Now, the black rhino is a critically endangered species. There are about 5,000 of them in the world, about 2,000 in Namibia. And what the Namibian government does is they auction off the older males.
What happens is the black rhino gets older, it sees other rhinos, it wants to attack them oftentimes and kill them.
So the government will offer up those problem rhinos for trophy hunting and then use the money to protect the others from poachers.
Is poaching of the black rhinos a real issue?
Huge issue. Rhino horn right now, it goes, what's the number? $60,000 a pound.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's worth like 3 times as much as gold per ounce.
Damn.
In any case, he said, you got to keep in mind that living next to a black rhino, not just talking about it, but actually living next to a black rhino, it's a nightmare.
I mean, who wants to live next door to a raging psychopathic beast that's killing things? No one.
So in just very purely economic terms, it has a negative value. But what Corey will tell you, and what conservation organizations like World Wildlife Fund and various others will tell you, is by him paying $350,000 to shoot one, he is creating a positive value for that animal. He's creating jobs for game wardens. He's creating jobs for trackers.
So you got to look at the net benefit.
Andre and Estelle Swanepoel own the Aru Game Farms, which are a series of huge swaths of land that they've fenced in. In total, they have like over 200 square miles of land that actually used to be filled with cattle.
And 15, 16 years ago, we converted into a game farm.
Basically, they decided to get rid of all the cattle and bring in all these animals. They've got giraffes, they've got 2 different species of zebra, wildebeest, artebeest. In all, they've got 29 different species, including... How many black rhino are on the property here?
Up until about 3 weeks ago, there were 10, and now we've got 11. So
one of the hunting guides, Steph
Joubert at the Aru Game Lodges in Namibia,
told me that they actually just had a rhino born on the property, and in fact, they've had several throughout the years born on this property. The numbers show that this Namibian model is working. Wildlife numbers on private land have gone up by almost 80% since the government allowed people to buy, sell, and shoot wildlife on their land. And since trophy hunting of the black rhino was legalized, that population has grown by like 30%. But
front of my face.
Not all African conservationists are on board. I talked to a guy named Richard Leakey, a super famous anthropologist, who also directed Kenya's wildlife program for a while. And I asked him, what is your stance on this idea of sustainable use? of wildlife.
Listen to me. I think it's utterly ridiculous. You know, if a father can't afford to pay school fees for his children, does he say to somebody, you can rape my daughter so I can get the money to pay for her school fees? I mean, I think we've got to set some standards in life, and I think this is nonsense, what this argument is about. Killing wild animals so that they can be looked after absolutely sends the wrong message.
This was the big issue he took with Namibia's strategy.
Yes, you can afford to lose 5 rhinos from a breeding perspective, but does that send a right message?
He then told me a story about when he took over Kenya's Wildlife Service in 1989. At the time, things were dire.
Elephants were being killed at an alarming number, and we were going to lose our elephants totally.
Poaching was on the rise, and his predecessors had actually confiscated a huge number of elephant tusks from these poachers.
12 tons. 12 tons. Wow. If you saw it, you thought, that's a lot of ivory.
And they recommended to him, sell this ivory, make about $3 million, and then use that money to help fight poaching. But Leakey said no. What he did instead was he built a giant tower out of that ivory.
And set fire to it.
Millions of dollars in ivory taken by poachers, burned.
More than 12 tons of contraband
12 tons of illegally poached ivory worth several $1 million.
It burned for 3 days. It got television, it got newspaper, it got magazine, it got radio.
It was this massive PR stunt to draw the world's attention to the plight of elephants. And part of what he was saying in that was like, we have to value these things beyond their dollar value. We have to respect the intrinsic value of these creatures.
But wait a second. If you're burning a bunch of ivory, aren't you in effect increasing the value of the ivory because now there's just less of it out there?
Well, so you're looking at the supply end of it, right? Yes, by reducing supply, that would push up price. Leakey was attacking the demand side.
What an impact it had around the world. Opinion changed overnight.
He said it woke the public up. People stopped buying ivory, and the market for ivory, it just crashed.
Up to that time, we'd been losing about 3,500 elephants to 4,000 elephants a year. Mm-hmm. And a year later, we were losing at most 60.
Really?
It had an enormous impact, my friend. Getting a public that supports conservation of wildlife, that's a huge challenge, and we just can't afford, I think, to send out the wrong messages.